Welcome to Massive Late Fee. And now your hosts, Mark and Carol.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Massive Late Fee. My name is Mark. With me as always is my fiance Carol. How you doing today, Carol?
Hey, what's up?
How much? It's been a good week here. It's October 3rd, 1998.
It is.
When was the last time I messed up a date? When was the last time I struggled to remember what day it was?
Well, once we got that calendar, you were all set.
It's been years. Yeah, we got your Kathy calendar.
Ack.
No, we have a Garfield calendar, everyone. We're not children.
Mm-hmm. I hate Mondays, so it works.
And you love lasagna, which we ate today.
I do.
You ever think about that? Like, Mr. Arbuckle. He takes it to the vet. Mr. Arbuckle, your cat is seriously unhealthy. What have you been feeding it? Just some cat food and an entire plate of lasagna.
Right.
What? Cats are not supposed to eat that, Mr. Arbuckle. But he hates Mondays. Your cat has gout.
Right.
Anyway, speaking of sound judgment, though, that's the title of this article. Sound judgment.
All right.
Sheryl Crow, one of your favorites,
Yes.
turns inward. On Globe sessions, singer's lyrics get personal, and she achieves a distinctive sound. Somebody call the patent office. Sheryl Crow, now 3 albums into a career more artistically accomplished than most folks would have predicted, has officially achieved what people in the publicity biz like to call a distinctive sound. Crow's voice, that just raspy, conversational contralto, pushed up to the front of the mic, certainly helps the cause, but mostly it's the arrangements that surround that voice, a sparse, sparkling, rustic sound. Maybe the kind of cosmopolitan country rock, you know it now when you hear it. The fat guitars, the light dabs of Wurlitzer electric piano, the sharp snare drum cracks.
It's so weird to hear somebody trying to describe music.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it can really be done.
You can't describe music, dude. Give up your life. Music critic.
But she is awesome.
We're about to describe a movie.
Yeah, that's different.
I guess I see what you're saying, but I don't know. I think it's apropos. Don't you think that Sheryl Crow has? I know you like her. Mm-hmm. Don't you think she has a distinctive sound?
Yeah.
I thought it was well described, honestly. Okay. I thought it was. I gave it that overwrought read. Like when someone's being, I don't know, pompous or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I actually thought it was kind of spot on.
I mean, it was. I just was thinking that even if it was spot on, though, like if you'd never heard it, you still don't really understand it from listening to somebody describe it. Yeah,
you couldn't describe music to an alien. Like an alien comes down to Earth, has never heard music before. What is music? To explain to me what it's like. Well, it's a rustic, sparse sound. With fat guitars. The guitars have eaten too much. Mm-hmm. It's an alien. It takes everything too literally. And sounds like a robot for some reason. But speaking of robots, Jeremy Piven is in a new movie.
Who's Jeremy Piven?
Jeremy Piven's in a new TV show. Remember he was in PCU, which we did so many years ago.
Yeah.
Feels like 1,000 years ago.
Goodness.
Anybody that's been listening to our tapes probably feels the same way.
Will it ever end?
It's like a Sisyphean task listening to our tapes.
But we appreciate y'all.
Well, that's Sheryl Crow like. We appreciate y'all. Jeremy.
Okay, she's not a country music star.
Her music's a little more country-esque, I think, right?
No.
All right. Jeremy played Cupid once before. Quote, I hooked these two people up, he boasts, except the real Mr. Right wasn't who Piven chose, but instead the designee's best friend. The adjustment was made, and the gal and best friend were absolutely right for each other. Now, I chose this for a couple reasons, this article.
Okay.
I just read that article, the verbatim, the first sentence of that article. Does that make any sense at all? Like, am I just having a stroke or what?
No, it made no sense. You are correct.
What does that mean? Quote, I hooked these two people up, he boasts. Then the rest is not in quotes. Except the real Mr. Right wasn't who Piven chose, but instead the designee's best friend.
So
what?
He tried to hook her up with a guy, and instead she went for the best friend. It's like that movie we watched.
Oh, okay, I guess I get it.
But it's really poorly worded and doesn't sound right.
Yeah. I do have Cupid's like skills, concludes the star of Cupid.
3 to Tango? Is that what it was called? I don't remember.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, that could be it. No.
No.
Rules of Engagement?
Maybe. I don't know. It seems like it's the plot of more than one movie, probably.
It's not Less Than Zero. I don't remember. Anyway, this former live-in cousin on Ellen, he was on the Ellen show too, seems a long shot for the mythological god of love. Best known as a winged cherub with a bow and arrow, but disregard mythology. Here's the setup. A man named Trevor Hale turns up in a Chicago mental ward and claims he's Cupid. Dr. Claire Allen, a relationship expert, takes on Trevor as a special project. What? Her new outpatient keeps insisting that he has been bounced from Mount Olympus, and the only way for him to get back is to bring together 100 couples.
Oh, my dear Lord.
But not just for hanky-panky. Each match counts only if the gods decide it's true love.
This is stupid. This is really stupid. Like, not a little stupid.
So that is the premise for his new show, Cupid, which premieres on Saturday. Which is a great sign for your show. Hey, you know that day that nobody watches TV? We're going to premiere your show on that day. Excellent.
That's about what it needs.
Now, last article of the day.
And then we're going to get to it.
I chose this last because this holds a special place in my heart here. Wells's films rarely turned out as he intended. I think that's probably the case for pretty much every filmmaker out there. But one of the many ironies in Orson Welles' rocky career in the movies is how few of his film ideas made it to the screen intact, if at all. His 1958 mini-classic Touch of Evil, getting its final showings at the Detroit Film Festival today, is but one example. I don't know. You've never seen it, I don't think.
No.
Right? Touch of Evil?
Mm-mm. Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Charlton Heston and... Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston and Orson Welles. Orson Welles plays the bad guy, like a corrupt cop. And Charlton Heston is supposed to be Mexican, so...
That's a stretch.
He's dressed up as a Mexican. And
how do you dress up as a Mexican?
They tan his face, and he has a little mustache.
So he's got blackface on.
Brown, but yeah, I guess.
That's awful.
And Janet Leigh's in it. But anyway, so it begins with a very famous, like, 3-minute long crane shot where the camera's on a crane and it starts and kind of pans out, goes through the whole city, goes through like a whole cityscape. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably his best movie.
Okay.
Citizen Kane's probably... It was like the innovations that Citizen Kane made were huge. Mm-hmm. And that gives it a lot of points. I think the story in Citizen Kane's probably better, like the actual story. But I think on a technical level, as far as his powers as a director, like the cinematography, the camera movement, the frame composition, stuff like that, I think this was when he was at the top of his game. This was, after all, the same Orson Welles who, at the age of 25 in 1941, was given complete creative control over his first feature film, Citizen Kane. It was also the same Orson Welles who, later in life, sold his acting talents to the highest bidder, as in Paul Mason wine commercials. Yeah, I remember that. The French. so he could cobble together his own independent projects. The last decade has witnessed the release and re-release of several Wells films. But so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about why Wells was screwed over in Hollywood.
Okay, go for it.
The first movie he made, as they said, he was a huge radio star and Broadway. He had done a lot. He had done staged a ton of productions that were very popular, and so they gave RKO gave him complete control over this film. They'd never given this kind of control before, and never would again. He directed the movie, starred in the movie, wrote the movie, produced the movie.
Oh wow!
Now he co-wrote the movie with Herman Mankiewicz, but they, he did have a hand in writing it, and the subject of Citizen Kane is essentially the newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst, and there were things in the movie that directly related to Hearst's life. Supposedly, they met at a party, and Hearst was rude to him, and he didn't like the way he treated Marion. Can't remember her name, but I think her name was Marion, his second wife.
Okay.
And so, out of spite, he wrote this film.
Wow.
As hey, this is the fucking guy. You think this is who your guy is? Here's what he's really like.
So this is a revenge movie.
Kind of. And Hearst almost got the film destroyed. Like, he went to RKO and said, hey, I'm going to destroy your well, essentially what he said is, you know how people don't like Jews? I'm going to remind everybody in my newspapers who runs Hollywood. And we'll see how many people want to go see your fucking movies and everything. He was pissed. So they thought about it. They thought about completely shelving the film, destroying it, burning it.
Wow.
And Joseph Cotton, who was a co-star in the movie, one of Wells's good friends from the New York days, and Orson Welles went to meet with the board at RKO. And Joseph Cotton, who was there, said the world didn't get to see Orson Welles' greatest performance, but he essentially went up there and gave this soliloquy about how war was raging in Europe, and one of the things that they were fighting over, one of the Nazi regime was censorious. They were for censorship. They were for shutting down. They were anti-freedom, essentially.
Well, yeah.
And he said, soon, we'll be pulled into this war too. And where do you want to stand? Do you want to stand on the side of the Nazis, essentially, and shut my movie down? Or do you want to stand with freedom and an eagle and American Pie and release my movie? And they did release the film.
Wow. What a manipulative bastard.
Yeah. But after that movie, and that movie is widely considered as the greatest movie ever made.
Okay.
After that movie was released and all the terrible press and Hearst was pissed off and everything, Welles struggled to get other movies made. He got some movies made. He never kind of got the control he wanted. His movies got changed, edited. He didn't have control over a lot of the final edits and things like that. So that's like death for a director, not being able to control your film like that.
Well, yeah.
And then, years later, like in the 70s, like they were talking about, he started doing Vandy Camp, like fish stick commercials and wine commercials and stuff so that he could get money together to put together, independently finance his own movies.
Okay.
So what could have been a brilliant film career was, I think, cut short. Now, he made probably 4 or 5 fantastic films, but he could have had a career like Hitchcock or Steven Spielberg now, or
So he committed career suicide.
Essentially, yeah. I don't think he realized he was doing that at 25 years old in 1941, but yeah, he made an enemy of the wrong person.
Wow.
I think evil kind of won, to be honest with you.
Kind of sounds like Kevin Smith, though, financing his own stuff. And
oh, yeah.
Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. But speaking of evil winning.
Oh, God.
We saw a movie.
We did.
Strangeland.
And what a movie it was.
I should have known. So I should have known this was going to be bad two ways. Locally here, we have the Star Theaters, which are like the nice, they get all the biggest films. That's like, we saw Titanic at the Star Theater and everything. And then there's AMC. And I'm not saying AMC is bad. I'm not saying they're a bad theater. They get a lot of the first run movies too. But the stuff that the Star is like, nah, we're not fucking showing that, goes to AMC, and guess where we saw this? At an AMC theater. And the other thing is, I couldn't find any critical reviews of the movie. Sometimes I'll look at critical reviews and see if I agree, disagree, usually after we watch the movie, because I want to form my opinion first.
Right.
But I couldn't find any critical reviews. Why? Because the studio didn't release the movie for critics.
Oh, wow.
Critics had to see it when everyone else got to see it. There were no advanced screenings for it. That is almost universally a terrible sign, because they don't want the bad critical reviews to get out before the opening weekend.
So if they know it's a piece of shit, why make it or release it or any of it?
Certain amounts of movies need to lose money in order for them to balance their books and pay less in taxes and stuff. There's a lot of like gross Hollywood accounting reasons for it. And then a lot of times they don't realize it's bad until it's done. Until they've spent all the money, until it's been filmed, and then it's like they go through and start editing it, and they're like, we can't put anything together that looks any good. They screen it, and the screening audiences are like, oh no.
I gotta say though, I don't think it's a piece of shit.
Really?
I mean, I don't love it, but I don't think it's terrible.
Okay, I did. And this will be fun to talk about. So, Strangeland. D. Snyder's Strangeland. Because he wrote the movie. Mm-hmm. Apparently based on, based on a Twisted Sister song, because obviously D. Snyder, lead singer of Twisted Sister, We're not gonna take it. That guy. Horror Terria. We listened to it. What'd you think of Horror Terria?
The song was awful. The song was really, really bad.
So, first of all, imagine writing this part for yourself.
It's a little weird
in a movie because he stars. Well, I guess stars is a big term, but
I don't know. I think he stars.
He's the villain of the piece.
I mean, I guess the cop is the star. He's the protagonist, and the D. Snyder's the antagonist.
Yeah, but he's the villain of the piece. What's his name? Captain Howdy.
Yeah,
like in The Exorcist. That's what the demon calls itself. Or whatever. I'm Captain Howdy or whatever. I assume that has to be a reference to that.
Yeah, I didn't remember that, so thank you.
Too bad Linda Cardellini didn't watch The Exorcist. Or she might have been like, oh, he's named himself after a demon. Yeah. And he likes snowboarding. But anyway, so I can't imagine, like I said, I can't imagine writing this part for yourself. The movie is about, what did they call it? Modern primitives. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar at all with the modern primitive
I was not familiar with it until we saw this movie, no.
So they kind of explained it a little bit in the film. I do find it funny that all the straight characters, mm-hmm. all the boring, like, we live in a society characters.
The normal people?
Yeah, are, like, none of them are interesting. We don't really get to learn much about them. There aren't really any scenes highlighting them as people. We don't get a lot of characterization for them. All the freaks, sorry, D. Snyder, all the freak characters, like the tow truck driver, who gets his own little fucking mini backstory in this movie, are interesting. Yeah. Those are the interesting characters in the movie. We don't, like, the victims... I'll get to it in a minute. Well, I was like, the victims, we don't really. I don't feel anything for the victims. What? I don't feel much for Linda Cardellini.
I do.
The young actress that plays the the main victim in the movie. And I don't feel much for the guy that gets his penis pierced or any of the other nameless, faceless, naked bodies chained up in the dungeon. I feel something for them in a very surface, like, oh, that sucks. That'd be shitty if like that happened to somebody or whatever. But I don't feel it deep down because we don't know them. We don't get to know them. And the movie never... we get flashes of them, like, there, being like, oh, you know, this sucks, or whatever, in the torture chamber. But, like, there's never any scene of, like, she's alone. He's gone. He's on the computer or whatever, clacking. She tries to escape. She's, you know, like, she's struggling. She's crying. She's calling out for her parent. We don't get any of that.
We do get a little bit. I mean, not that she's alone, but I mean, like the catheter, when, like, she sees the guy getting his penis, you know, and you see the pee coming out of the catheter, it's like she's so scared or whatever. Although I don't know if that would really, that's really accurate, that you pee from fear and it would come out the catheter. Doesn't the pee just come out the catheter no matter what?
I don't know. I haven't fucking chained somebody up and stuck a catheter into their urethra. I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
Like, what do you, like, I think the whole point was that she was afraid, and so she peed.
Right. I'm just wondering if that was accurate, that would actually happen. I literally spent minutes pondering whether or not that would...
Whether what would happen?
If somebody has a catheter in,
yeah,
I think the urine just comes out. I don't think that you physically pass urine. So I don't think that fear would make urine come out the catheter. I think that was a mistake.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess not. I don't know. I've never had I mean, knock on wood.
You've never had a catheter? You are so lucky.
I've never had a catheter put in.
Oh, it's awful. And yeah, you don't take any part in the peeing. It just comes out.
Okay, well then there's your answer.
But I mean, like, I'm wondering if fear could make it come out more or at that time.
No, I don't think so. I think you're right.
So
the whole point of the fear is, like, you lose control of your bladder, essentially.
Yeah, you already don't have control over it when you have a catheter.
So I agree. I think that's a mistake. But what I'm saying is, like, that's so small.
Yeah.
We don't get...
And the nightmares.
Okay, there's one nightmare, and she wakes up and she's afraid, and that's sad. But then she's immediately kidnapped again. We don't spend any time with this character.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
She could be anyone. I don't know anything about her character. Like, if we were doing, like, describe this character without just, like, saying what she looks like, or, you know, who she's related to, or who her friends are, you know, like describe her actual personality, it's, like, impossible.
Well, yeah, she's not a well-developed character. But, okay, in Kiss the Girls... The victims, the kidnapped victims, aren't well developed either.
But the point of that isn't, like, so, well, they're more well developed than these characters are. For one, I don't even know all the characters that are down there. He gets down there and there's these people chained to walls, and I'm like, who the fuck are these people?
Yeah, you'd think there'd be a bigger, like, issue of people going missing if, you know, somebody locally had taken, like, 10 people?
Yeah, no shit. But anyway, so... In a movie like Kiss the Girls, the focus is very much on the detective, who's interesting.
Yeah, this detective was bad. I will give you that.
And it's like he doesn't do anything clever.
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, it's his daughter that's taken.
Yeah,
and this is where I feel like the acting really fell short in the film. Is that neither the cop father or his wife. Mm-hmm. Really seem emotionally invested enough or upset enough.
Exactly. She's just like, tell me what's going on. Oh, I know you can't tell me. You can't tell me things, you know, related to the case or whatever because you're the dad, but you're also the detective assigned to this case because reasons. Like, what the fuck? How is this allowed at all?
Yeah.
And you speculated when we were talking about it later, like, oh, maybe it's a really small town. They had no whatever recourse. But I pointed out to you that twice we are shown the sign of the town, and twice it says the population is 350,000 people.
Yeah, I'm sure there's another detective.
So there's no way he's the only detective at work. Like, it's ridiculous. Now, have a scene with him being like, I want to work this case, and the captain or whatever rightly being like, no. Right. Of course you can't work the case. And then show him trying to like weasel his way in and talk to the detectives that are working the case and like try to figure stuff out. And then maybe he could be putting the puzzle pieces together.
Right. Like, and what he actually does for figuring it out could have been done in his off time. It wasn't like official police business. He gets his niece to come over and help him figure out the computer. And then he talks to the guy. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, from there, he figures shit out. So,
well, he doesn't do anything to figure it out. He goes there. He gets the wrong address from the guy. So they set it up like, okay, first of all, we got to back up for a second. Linda Cardellini and her friend are talking to some dude in a
chat room.
Like an AOL chat room or whatever.
But, yeah, not AOL, but yeah.
AOL didn't want to put its fucking name on this shit.
Well, I got the feeling that this is a local one, like kind of like what I used to do with like the Gateway Bulletin Board system. You know, like I feel like it was something like that, where people know each other or at least have something in common.
So her and her friend are on the internet just kind of talking to people and stuff like that. And this Captain Howdy's like, hey, you know, you're cool or whatever. You want to come over to a party or like, or my
parents are out of town.
Parents are out of town, and she's like, "Can I bring my friend?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, bring your friend. You know, I'll fuck you both or whatever." He doesn't say that, but it's like that's the implication or whatever. And so, like a lot of teens, they're like, "Cool, we'll go meet somebody new at a fucking secluded location."
See, that's so stupid. Like, my friend met a dude online.
Yeah, my friends have met girls online.
And I mean, honestly, one of my best friends I met online. Mm-hmm. But, like, you don't meet a stranger at their house. Like, no. You meet them in a public place. Or, like, with my friend, I knew people who knew her.
Right.
So it was okay.
We went to the mall.
Yeah.
Like, the one time I'm thinking of, my friend and I were like, well, let's meet up at the mall.
Yeah, or we went bowling one time. Although, okay, one time I did go on a date with a guy, and he came to my house. I mean, to get me.
Harder to kill you. Yeah, to get you. Anyway, so that must have been like right before we got together.
Yeah.
Very early days of the internet, everyone.
Yes.
But anyway, so they're talking to this dude, and they're like, well, we'll go over there. So they go over, and we don't even see them get abducted, really?
No, we don't. Oh, no, we definitely... There's no really... We don't. They go to the party, and then, boom, it's just, oh, she didn't come home.
Yeah. And that makes it a lot less dramatic.
Yeah, I feel like that was missing. Like, it would have helped to see them get kidnapped. And later, when the dad goes to the wrong house, like, I feel like...
We would have known.
That's what he does all the time, maybe, though? Maybe he always sends them to the wrong house, and then he abducts them from that house or from that porch or whatever, if they are truly the young girls he thinks they are.
Maybe. But this is this. So, like I was saying, the detective doesn't do anything smart. The killer or whatever, torturist, does something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I think he kind of figures out that they're cops, and he's like, we'll come to this address. And so they come to the address. You might be right, though. He might send everyone there just to make sure that they're not cops, I guess. But they come there, and it's the wrong house.
They walk in on an old couple fucking.
But it's the house, like, next door to his fucking house.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah. But that's why I think he didn't figure it out, because he would have sent them further away. I think this is just what he does.
Yeah. And then for no reason, instead of chatting with the chat feature, like typing stuff out, he sends him audio.
Yeah, that was a weird choice, too.
I don't even know how to do that. I mean, I guess there's ways to do it through chatting and stuff like that, sending audio. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But...
I mean, obviously there are, because they did in the movie. But
yeah, but, well, I mean, that could be, who knows?
Well, it's not like 20 years in the future, so...
No, what I'm saying is that could just be special effects. Like, that doesn't mean they actually did it. But anyway, so he sends him audio, and on the audio, there's a dog barking, and it's the dog barking at the house next door.
And it's in real time practically, because it's like they're chatting and then he sends them audio that he recorded right then.
Yeah, it's not like he goes home and he's trying to like fucking figure it out or whatever, and he's like he has to remember that there was a dog barking or anything. The dog's barking on the recording. Mm-hmm. And like he has to listen to it like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And the whole time we're in the theater like, we get it! It's that dog.
And then when he goes up to the right house, the windows are painted black. How did they not notice that?
How did no one say anything in the neighborhood?
Right.
Because this isn't like a secluded location. It's just in a neighborhood.
Yeah, residential neighborhood.
It makes no sense. But he kidnaps people not to kill them, but to turn them into modern primitives, I guess. Like, I'm not sure exactly what his motivation is, which is another thing that doesn't make a lot of sense about this either, is the villain doesn't have a very clear motivation.
Well, I mean, he seems like he thinks that he's helping them or he's trying to bring them some kind of spiritual enlightenment or something.
So modern primitivism is essentially people in the modern times using body modification rituals, whether it's tattoos or it's extreme piercings, things that people did thousands of years ago or whatever. And Dee Snider, one of the things that he's saying as the villain, Captain Woody or whatever, as he's saying, or Pazuzu, whatever he wants to be called.
Pazuzu?
Pazuzu's the demon in...
Ghostbusters.
No.
That's
Gozer. Or Zool or whatever. The demon in Exorcist's real name is Pazuzu. Instead of Captain Howdy. But anyway, so he I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
So he kidnaps people and wants to turn them into this. What the fuck was I talking about?
Modern primitives.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So
his motivation.
These extreme forms of body modification and everything. And he's like there's a lot of soliloquies from him in this movie, and a lot of it comes from whatever Fekar Musafir or something like that. One of the fathers of modern primitivism.
Okay.
But he's like when we first hear about it, when the detective first hears about it from the tow truck guy
driver,
who's got all these gauges and everything. They find the car. They find his daughter's car crashed and
in the lake.
Yeah, and her friend is dead in the trunk. And there's this giant like gauge septum piercing, which, by the way, was that his? She didn't have her septum pierced. Did he just like toss that in the trunk? Like,
yeah, it can't like fall out. It's not an earring.
Yeah, I mean that was weird that it was even there. But anyway, so the tow truck guy's like, oh yeah, it's modern primitivism. Oh, you guys think it's fucking weird or whatever? They've been doing it for thousands of years. Winston Churchill's grandma had a tattoo on her wrist or fucking whatever. And he's like going through all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, they they did slavery too thousands of years ago. That doesn't mean like, oh, that's cool, bring it back. Like, they did a lot of shit. They fucking did cannibalism and cavemen fucking beat each other to death for land and shit.
But
don't bring that back.
A lot of people have tattoos and piercings and things that probably know nothing about this movement. Like me, I have 2 tattoos. Yeah. I had gotten my tongue pierced. I have 4 different piercings of my ears at one point. So I was never like, hey, modern primitivism.
Well, it's different. Just getting a tattoo or just getting your ears pierced is different. There's a whole
tongue.
Okay, sure. I mean, that could be part of it, but they do it ritualistically, and there's like spirituality involved in it and stuff like that. It's a whole thing to itself. And I'm not saying I know I sound like a fucking square, and maybe I'm just too. Maybe
I'm in the 1950s.
Maybe I'm just too much of an L7 weenie for this movie, I guess, or whatever. But it's I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting tattoos. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting piercings. even if you have spirituality tied into it or whatever, I'm not saying any of that's wrong. But they treat it like, oh, well, of course we're fucking right. Like, don't even question it. Because they did it thousands of years ago. And it's like, that's bad reasoning.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, that's, I guess, his motivation is to sew their mouths and eyes shut to give them enlightenment.
It's disgusting. He doesn't sew all their eyes shut. He sews Robert Englund's eyes shut. And there was, like, I think another lady that he did.
The black girl's eyes were shut.
Were they? But he didn't.
I thought Linda Cardellini's were, too.
No.
Okay.
No, she saw her dad.
Yeah. Yeah, just her mouth, I guess.
Yeah, and, like, the guy who was getting his dick pierced also could see.
He could see all too well.
Right.
But one of my main issues with this movie is the structure of this movie.
Okay.
The structure of this movie is a mess.
Sure.
So, here's the plot. He kidnaps the girls. One of them dies because she has a genetic heart condition. He doesn't want to kill anyone. I guess, whatever. He wants to fucking torture him. I don't know.
I gotta say one thing really quick before you go through this, just in regards to this. He said at one point that he's full of hate.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that was his justification for everything that he'd been doing. So it's like, on one hand, he's like, oh, I'm trying to enlighten people. But on the other hand, he's like, I feel nothing but hate. So he doesn't want to kill anybody, but he's hurting everybody. And I don't know.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So he kidnaps the girls. One of them dies. Police investigation. Like you said, apparently none of these other people had dads that fucking cared about them. Only Linda Cardellini. He finds her, takes down Dee Snider, and he gets arrested. He gets found not guilty by reason of insanity. We don't see any of this. Just newspaper flashes of this happening.
Yeah.
He gets released. Apparently cured.
Supposedly he's been rehabilitated.
And it's only been like 2 or 3 years.
5 years.
Is that what they said? 5 years?
Yeah, she was like 16 maybe, and now she's like an adult. She's like a young adult, Linda Cardellini.
What are you basing 5 years on?
What they said in the movie or maybe it was 4 years. I don't know.
Okay.
But they said so many years later. It wasn't just like 2. It was
I think it was
years.
3, but anyway. We'll go with 5 or 4, whatever. It's a number of years later. It's not that long for him to be in a mental hospital and they'll be like, oh, he's cured.
Right.
He only needed like 6 months worth of therapy, and I guess he would have been fine. Probably should have gone to therapy before. But anyway, so they release him dressed in a cardigan to the exact same house where he tortured and killed people.
Yeah, that's not believable.
By the way, like, that house didn't get repossessed or sold. Like, he got found not guilty by reason of insanity. There were no civil suits. Like, the girl who died, their parents didn't bring a wrongful death suit. O.J. Simpson loses his fucking Heisman Trophy or whatever.
Right.
But this guy just keeps his house. I don't get that.
Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense.
And then you just release him to the same town and the same place or whatever where he committed these atrocities. Seems like really good therapy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, despite what ends up happening, I mean, just like what it would do to his psyche if we are supposed to believe he was in any way cured, seeing all that again would be bad.
So he's cured or whatever. He takes psychotic pills or whatever. He's got a big bottle of pills. Robert Englund steps into the movie to become the movie's plot lord for like 20 minutes, or less than that, like 10 minutes, and decides, fuck this guy, I'm going to kidnap him.
Well, he decides that his stepdaughter or daughter, I really wasn't sure. I think stepdaughter.
I guess stepdaughter, because
he says your daughter and stuff to his wife. He just assumes because she's late coming home that this guy has taken her, and then he rounds up the vigilantes. Yeah. So he takes him. They take him and they try to hang him, but they don't kill him. And the detective, sees this. He's sitting in his car outside the guy's house. Was he assigned there? Was that part of his job?
I don't know.
And if so, assign a better cop for the situation.
Seriously.
Come on, people. So he just watches them take him, and Captain Howdy, whatever, sees him watch and not do anything.
Yeah. And so then they hang him, but they don't kill him. He miraculously lives like Jason Voorhees, even though they think he's dead.
The tree branch broke.
You know how long he was hanging there for? You don't think he would have died of asphyxiation?
It takes a long time sometimes.
I guess. Anyway, so he dies, but he doesn't die. They've all left. So
it rains a little.
They ran over his crazy pills. Yeah, the fucking angry mob got rained out. They ran over his crazy pills, so I guess he's crazy now again. And then he just kidnaps Linda Cardellini and kidnaps Robert fucking Englund. And, does the torture.
A bunch of other people too, though.
Just does the torture shit to them. So what I hate about the structure of this movie is, why have him be caught at all? This, why did we waste time on this? He's caught, then he gets out, and then less than 10 minutes later, he's a killer again, and then the movie's over. Then the detective decides to track him down and burn him alive in the club. Which, by the way, the name of the club's something with an X. I can't remember what it is. Excuse me. Exilia or something like that. And the guy's like, oh, it's Mayan for hell. And it's like, no, it's not. Because the Mayans didn't have hell.
Right.
That wasn't part of their religion. The concept of hell didn't originate until the Christians, essentially. So it meant a place of fear, really, is what it means. But it's not hell.
Well, you did your homework.
I did. I went to the library, looked up the Mayan language in an encyclopedia.
Wow.
Anyway, so he finds him there. He's like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't use that gun. We should let's solve this with fists." And he's like, "Sure, okay."
Yeah, that was stupid too.
And then he gets the better of him and then kills him and everything. The whole time he's like, "I want to die anyway." This guy wasn't creepy or scary to me. So I heard somebody coming out of the theater, someone was like, "Oh man, what a creepy villain, what a scary villain," and I was like, "No, what a non-interesting villain to me."
Why?
Because he had no motivation. He had I didn't know or care what he wanted. He was contradictory, like you said. It didn't. Hannibal Lecter's an interesting villain.
Yeah,
Hannibal Lecter has depth as a character. This dude had no depth. And I think this wanted to be kind of like a Silence of the Lambs mixed with Nightmare on Elm Street, I guess. It gave me Nightmare on Elm Street vibes.
Okay. I don't know. I guess the movie is fairly superficial throughout. It's
all surface. There is no substance to this movie at all. And that's one of the things that I hate about it. And it's what's the thesis of the movie? It seemed very important for Dee Snider writing this movie that guy's a monster, guy gets out, vigilante mob gets him, and he becomes a monster again. Because that's the structure, even though the structure is dumb and doesn't make any... The pacing's part of the problem. Well, the structure is the big part of the problem because we get a lot of build-up with him being a monster. Very, very little of him rehabilitated. And then, the last 20 minutes of the film is a monster again. And there's not enough times given to any of these ideas. But is the thesis of the movie that Robert Englund, who talks about his stepdaughter getting fucked and watches weird porn that looks like it's pedophile, not pedophile, but
it's pretend pedophilia.
Looks like underage porn. Looks like they're being forced to do it. It looked almost like a fucking snuff film or something like that. The guy that talks about his stepdaughter and getting fucked and watching this porn is as bad as Captain Howdy. Sure, I agree. But, I believe you. But that's not an interesting premise.
I didn't really think that was the point. That didn't even cross my mind as being a point.
The vigilante justice, I think, is supposed to be something in here. Oh, you think you guys are so normal? A lot of you are just as fucked up or whatever as the people that look like me. That's, I think, part of the point. And it's I guess in this very specific instance, but you didn't take it. This is not like a Batman. You know what I mean? It's not like a Batman movie or a Batman comic or whatever, where Batman refuses to kill because his parents were the victims of violence and killed. And it's wrong, and he wants to be better than that. He wants to serve up justice without being corrupted. And that's why the Joker is like his greatest villain, because the Joker, it keeps pushing his boundaries and like forcing him into moral situations where he has to like, you know, choose between two of his morals or whatever. And like, it's, you know, it's interesting and everything. That's not what this is. This is just some fucking weird ass dude being like, I don't like that guy that got out. I don't believe in his cardigan sweater. Let's kill him. That I can believe. Like, and they cast Robert Englund, who were already predisposed to thinking as of a villain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole reason he was cast in Urban Legend, I have to imagine. The movie we just watched, because you're predisposed to think maybe that guy's the killer.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So, like, it doesn't... If you took someone, if you really built up the detective as a very moral, by-the-book guy, and then he sees the justice system fail him, and his daughter is in pain, and, you know, has PTSD, and it's like, this guy's out, and she's having these nightmares, and she's tortured, and he wants this to end, and he compromises his morality and leads the mob to kill him, and then it doesn't work, and that choice leads to his daughter being kidnapped and victimized once again, then you have something. You have at least some ideas. But that's not what happened in this movie.
Yeah.
Instead, we get to know no one, and the whole movie is a excuse for a bunch of things to happen. Flickering images on a screen. That's all this was.
You know, I didn't think he was a rapist until the end of the movie when he said that he raped his daughter.
Yes!
Like, he didn't...
What's enlightening about that?
Right. I guess that's how she felt when I was inside her. Like, what the fuck? Like, that, yeah.
That's not a cool line. And you wrote that for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand.
Yeah, like, it's not a great movie. It was interesting to me a little bit, just seeing, like, I don't know, the whole, like, I'm trying to think about how I want to say it, but the thing with the cop and him, you know, letting the mob get him and everything, and the consequences coming back on him, like, I don't know, I found it interesting. I realize you're right, it could have been done a lot better.
Yeah.
But it was still fine to me. The movie was fine.
I was frustrated most of the time because I think it's an interesting idea, but I don't think any of the ideas were fleshed out enough.
I have a question about Dee Snider.
Sure.
Does he have a tattoo on his face and normally, or was that just for the movie?
Just for the movie.
Okay. Well, that explains how they were able to remove it when he left jail and was supposed to be good again, because it wasn't a tattoo. Oh. It was painted on, but they did fucking remove it. And I'm like, I want to understand that. Was that makeup? Did he have it removed and then put back on? That was a huge tattoo.
Yeah, you're right. That was weird.
Like, I get you can take out piercings. You can't just get rid of a face tattoo.
I saw it. Well, most of the stuff that he was wearing was prosthetic. He does have his septum pierced, but it's smaller than it's a regular gauge, not a huge gauge like that. And a lot of the piercings and stuff down his chest and everything are all synthetic. They're just makeup. A lot of the tattoos are just makeup. I don't know if he has any tattoos, to be honest with you. I know he has piercings. I don't know if he has any tattoos. I believe he's Jewish, and and he might want to get buried in a Jewish cemetery. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't know if he has any. He might. I'm not sure. But I've read in an interview in Variety from Dee Snider him saying something like the hardest day to film was the day that he like turned good again because it was so uncomfortable wearing that cardigan sweater. That's like very funny joke, Dee Snider, because of all the rest of the makeup that you have to put on. You know, it's like, I assume he said it like sincerely, but I have to assume that it's a very sarcastic joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, piece of shit. I wouldn't see it. Don't trudge your way to a garbage AMC theater. Again, no offense, AMC theater.
Wow.
But yeah, don't go down and see it.
I guess we should just stick to Star from now on.
Skip it. No, there's some good stuff. Boogie Nights and so there's some good stuff that AMC shows, but
Okay.
Yeah, don't watch it. It's not good.
But it's not as bad as you say.
Okay. I don't recommend it. I don't even recommend renting it.
Yeah. I guess I wouldn't recommend it either. It's just fine.
But that is the episode, Carol. Another just fine episode for us. Tell the people where they can talk to our version of Captain Howdy.
You can write us at latefee1994 at AOL.com.
But we will not abduct you.
Check out our website at www.retrolatefee.com.
Unless you're into that.
And share the tapes with your friends.
All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.